All right, welcome back. Now, let's do another one. So notice this is a quartic, right? So it's to the fourth degree. So again, where do we start, right? Look at this. The only place to start would be with the rational zeros theorem. Okay, so the rational zeros theorem, or the possible rational zeros theorem is, well, let's do the P, right? So our P's are going to be the factors of -6, right? So that's going to be plus or minus, or yeah, 6, -6, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 6. And then the Q's, remember, come from the leading coefficient. And so that's going to be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2. Okay, now, so if I want all the possible rational zeros, then I'm going to take all of these divided by all of these. So again, dividing all these by 1 is just going to give me the P's. So that's going to be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, and plus or minus 6. Now if I divide out all of these P's by plus or minus 2, I'm going to get some extras. So I'm going to get plus or minus a half. This is just going to give me 1, which I already have. 3 divided by 2, that's going to give me plus or minus 3 halves, right? And then 6 divided by 2 is 3. I already have that one. So I'm done. This is my list, right? So now I'm going to start testing. Now the first thing I'm going to do is the one plus or minus 1. Okay, so let's do plus 1. So let's do 1, which means I'm just going to add up the coefficients. So it's going to be 2 plus 5 is 7, minus 2 is 5, minus 11 is 6, or negative 6, I should say. Minus 6 is minus 12, right? So that doesn't seem to work. So let's do it again. So 2 plus 5 is 7, minus 2 is 5, minus 11 is minus 6, and so we get minus 12 as a total. Does not work. Let's try negative 1. So negative 1 will give me 2 here, but then minus 5 here. So that's going to give me a minus 3. And then minus 3 minus 2 is minus 5. Here I'm going to get plus 11. So minus 5 and plus 11 gives me plus 6. Minus 6 gives me 0. So guess what? Negative 1 is a factor. Or excuse me, I'm sorry. Negative 1 is a 0, which means x minus negative 1 is a factor, right? So I know what? I know negative 1 is a 0, which tells me x plus 1 is a factor of this polynomial. So now I'm going to use synthetic division to find the quotient, right? So it's going to be negative 1, so we're going to use negative 1. And so I'm going to write down the coefficients. Make sure I have all, so 4, 3, 2, 1, yeah. So it's going to be 2, and then 5, and then negative 2, negative 11, and negative 6. And so now all I'm going to do is go through synthetic division. So I'm going to do 2. So now I'm just going to go through it. So it's going to give me negative 2, 3, negative 3, negative 5, 5, negative 6, 0. Okay, so there's my remainder, right? So again, just double check, right? 2, negative 2, 3, negative 3, negative 5, 5, negative 6, 6. Okay, good. So now my next polynomial is going to be what? It's going to be cubic. So it's going to be 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 5x minus 6. Okay, now, at this point, you could try to factor by grouping. But let's continue with the rational zeros theorem. Now here's the point that I want to make at this point. Now, it worked here, so -1 worked here. Now, keep in mind that it might work again, because think about multiplicities, right? You could have repeated roots. So don't always discard if it worked once. It might work another time. It might work 3 times. What you do is you keep using it until it doesn't work anymore. Once it doesn't work, then you're done with it, okay? So let's try -1 again. So again, use the shortcut. Say, okay, well, this is going to end up being -2, right? If I put in -1, so -2 plus 3 is, -2 plus 3 is 1. This is going to be 5. So 5 plus 1 is 6, minus 6 is 0. It worked again. So now I know that, again, x plus 1 is also a factor of this polynomial. So let's do synthetic division again. Okay, let's do it over here. So let's do -1 again. And now we're going to use 2, 3, -5, -6. So 2, 3, -5, -6. Okay. So again, I'm going to drop the 2, and then I get -2, 1, -1, -6, 6, 0. Okay. And now the resulting quotient from this division is now going to be what? X squared. So it's going to be 2x squared plus x minus 6. And now I can use the things in my toolbox to factor this one, namely the AC method, right? So I can take 2 times -6, which is -12. And so I'm looking for 2 factors of -12 that will add to +1. And that would be 3 and 4. So it'd be -3 and +4. Okay? So now, if I do this, I'm going to decompose the middle term. So that's going to give me 2x squared plus 4x minus 3x minus 6. And now, at this point, now it's factored by grouping. So I'm going to group the first 2 terms, and I'm going to group the second terms, but make sure, if you do it this way, you put a positive and make sure there's a negative on the 3. And so now I'm going to factor out here. This is going to be a 2x, so which is going to give me x plus 2. And then I'm going to factor out a -3 here, so this is going to be minus 3 times x plus 2. And now I've got another common factor, so I'm going to factor out x plus 2. So that's going to give me x plus 2 times the quantity 2x minus 3. And now I'm done. I've got it completely factored. And now I know what the zeros are, right? Because I can use the zero product principle on these factors. So I know I have a repeated 0 at -1. Okay? So the zeros are going to be -1. And then I've got -2. And I've got 3 halves. Oh, and also, if you wanted to list the multiplicities, like they asked to do in this case, so the multiplicity of the 0 of -1 has a multiplicity of 2. And the other 2 have a multiplicity of 1. Okay? So there are the zeros along with the corresponding multiplicities. Or, yeah, anyway. Okay, have a great day.